Welcome to the Forgotten Narrator. There is a reason no sane soul speaks of what lies beneath Necromunda. The Hives are already a descent into mechanized damnation, where men eat flesh for credits and worship industrial death gods. But deeper still, beneath the gang war tunnels, below the sump pits, far past the forgotten manufactorums and ancient debris strata, is a place where light dies. A place so sunken into time and rot that it is not counted in any cartograph or data slate. It is there that the true monsters dwell, not just beasts of flesh and fang, but errors of reality, things grown beyond intention, things that dream in rust and mutation. Some call them vermin, others gods. Their stories pass from whisper to scream in the dark, where even redemptionists dare not follow. These are not just threats to the Underhive. These are the buried sins of Necromunda itself, its broken past made manifest, its secrets twisted into form. This is not a bestiary. It is a eulogy. And once you understand what crawls beneath Necromunda's core, you may never walk its surface the same again. In the endless hunger of the Underhive, there is no such thing as true waste. Every corpse, every drop of runoff, every discarded limb or shattered bone becomes something else's feast. And beneath it all, in the choking dark beyond light and reason, crawl the filthbred vermin that are not merely scavengers. They are predators, feeders, parasites that do not just survive but thrive in Necromunda's rot. The corpse worms and ash leeches are not legendary horrors. They are real, and they are everywhere. It starts with the body. Doesn't matter if it's a ganger, a scavvy, a bounty hunter, or a kid who fell too far from the hab. Once the blood cools and the flesh stops twitching, the worms arrive. They don't crawl. They pour like wet, slithering sand from cracks in the walls, from sump holes, from the mouths of already dead things. Corpse worms, sometimes called shroud grubs, are pale, segmented things the size of a finger, covered in rows of jagged hook teeth. They swarm over a corpse in minutes, burrow inside by the hour, and leave nothing behind but bones and a sticky, gray slurry. Some say they digest memory, that a body consumed by corpse worms loses all identity. No gene trace, no soul signature, just gone. But worse than the shroud grubs are the ash leeches. These creatures are not mindless feeders. They are intelligent in a way that has no place in nature. Ash leeches are flat, disc-like things, with iridescent skin that shifts color to match any surface. They lurk in the soot-choked air ducts and waste tunnels, clinging to ceilings or floating in thick sump air. When prey is near, they detach, silent and fast, latching onto flesh with a ring of cilia fangs. The leech doesn't just drain blood, it sucks out chemical essence, stimulants, chems, even psychic residue. Gangers who rely on stim boosts are particularly targeted, their bodies left shriveled, eyes wide open, tongues swollen. Some variants of the ash leech have mutated to terrifying scale. One was recorded in the Cinder Bloom district, a leech the size of a man's torso, with limbs like wet ropes and a mouth that unfolded like a flower of razors. It drained a whole enforcer patrol in under 3 minutes. The picked recordings were scrubbed. The bounty placed was enormous. No one collected. These creatures are not new. They have been evolving, unchecked, for millennia. And in places where the layers of the hive collapse upon one another, where the refuse of entire centuries gathers into strata, these vermin grow monstrous. There are reports of worm mounds, living hills made entirely of feeding corpse worms, moving like gelatinous waves through abandoned hab blocks. One Orlok scavenger team found such a mound near Hive Mortis and never returned. Only their scout drone escaped, its last image a churning wall of pale flesh and bones being dragged inside. But perhaps the most grotesque of all is the Sump Ghoul. Unlike the others, it is not a single species but a grotesque fusion, part man, part parasite. Some say a corpse worm finds a still living host, burrows into the spine, and puppets the body in a mockery of life. Others believe certain humans willingly ingest the worms, seeking to become more than flesh. Whatever the origin, the result is horrific. Hunched figures with distended bellies, crawling with writhing grubs under the skin, eyes milk white, mouths filled with twitching tendrils. They speak only in hisses and clicks. They feed with both hands and tongue, and they seem to remember their lives, or at least the parts that involved killing. Few gangers speak openly of these monsters, not because of disbelief, but because of fear. The worms and leeches are too common, too widespread, too hard to exterminate. Like the hive itself, they are a part of the ecosystem now. You burn one nest, another forms. You gas a tunnel, and the survivors grow resistant. It's said that corpse worms can enter stasis for decades, hiding in cracks, waiting. And when the light dies, they rise again, hungry as ever. Even the tech priests of the Underhive have studied them, or tried to. One Magos biologist from Hive Trezig declared the ash leech to be the apex scavenger form in all hive-based ecologies. He attempted to breed them in controlled vats for use in waste filtration systems. Within a week, his entire laboratory was devoured. Only a data slate survived, recording his last words. They learned too fast. There is a cruel poetry in it. That beneath the wars and politics, beneath the ideologies and ambitions, the final truth of Necromunda is that everything rots, and something always comes to feed. The corpse worms and ash leeches are not evil, they are the price of neglect, the symptom of a planet long given over to decay, and they are patient, because they know, no matter who wins the next gang war, no matter what house rises or falls, the flesh will fall, the blood will spill, and they will be there, waiting. There are vaults beneath Hive Primus that do not appear on any map. Doors sealed, not just by adamantium bulkheads, but by codes older than the Imperium, guarded by servitors whose flesh has long since fused to the wall, and monitored by machines that whisper in binary no tech priest dares decipher. These are the hidden laboratories of House Helmawr, not the visible fortresses of power, but the secret catacombs where generations of lords have played at godhood with stolen genomes and forbidden science. And within these vaults were born monsters, not discovered, not evolved, but made. To understand the horrors beneath, one must first understand Helmawr's obsession with control. The ruling house of Necromunda is not content with ruling through politics or military might alone. They seek dominion over life itself. Some experiments are simple: bred soldiers, enhanced workers, pit fighters with claws like steel. But in the deeper labs, far from even the most loyal guards, the lines between flesh, machine, and nightmare blur. Among the most infamous were the Nullborn. These creatures were grown in psychically sterilized wound vaults, designed to emit no soul signature, no warp presence, a countermeasure to demonic intrusion and rogue psychers. But something went wrong. The Nullborn came out wrong. Not empty, but hungry. They did not repel the warp, they consumed it. Servants went mad just being near them. Tech adepts vomited blood when trying to measure their presence. The Helmawrs tried to seal them away, deep in the stone. But sometimes, very rarely, a Nullborn is seen again. A pale, featureless figure walking the Underhive, leaving silence and madness in its wake. Then there are the Genehounds. Grown as hunter beasts, these were the apex of bio-augmented tracking. Their flesh is loose and ever-shifting, absorbing samples from the environment to adapt. Shoot them with fire and their skin blisters, peels, then reforms, resistant. Slash them and their blood hardens to armor. The only flaw is their mind, engineered with too much loyalty, too much purpose. When their targets die, the Genehounds lose cohesion. Some simply expire. Others go rogue, hunting for meaning, for orders, for prey. It is said there is one still in the Ashline depths, a Genehound that has been wandering for over a century, following no command, only the echo of its last kill order: find Helmawr traitor, terminate. But perhaps the worst were the orphaned kings. Meant as biological vessels for backup Helmawr genetic lineages, these beings were designed to house the mind of a noble in case of assassination. Grown large, strong, and empty, waiting for a consciousness to be uploaded. But the project was sabotaged by a jealous heir or a dissenting Magos. The truth is lost. The result was that these orphaned kings awoke too early, without a soul, but with memory fragments. Echoes of lords who never lived, dreams of grandeur and betrayal. One broke containment, tore through 8 layers of lab defenses, and vanished into the deeps. There are rumors of a monstrous, armored figure preaching to Scaver tribes, calling itself Helmawr Ascendant, gathering a cult of beasts and failed clones. Other projects are less elegant. The Helmawr line has long trafficked in mutant experiments, blending scavenged Xenos DNA, Underhive fauna, and even chaos-touched flesh. Some were simply tests. Could a man survive with a second heart? Could a fighter regenerate lost limbs in combat? Could the eyes of a scavhawk be implanted into a human skull? These abominations rarely lived long, or lived too well. One such hybrid, known only as Project Glare, was a headless construct whose vision came from photoreceptors embedded across its torso. It could see in total darkness and was faster than any ganger alive. It escaped, and for a week, whole Underhive corridors went dark. When light returned, hundreds were dead, their eyes burned out. And all this horror exists not by accident, but design. The Helmawrs do not deny these programs, they simply do not speak of them. Any ganger who survives an encounter with one of their engineered beasts is either silenced or quietly recruited. After all, who better to help track a failed experiment than someone who has faced it and lived? The experiments continue. Somewhere in the lower spires near the genetic archives, it is whispered that a new project has begun. Not to make a beast, but a replacement. A perfect ruler. A clone of Lord Helmawr, but better, immune to age, poison, and treachery. But as with all Helmawr creations, perfection is a lie. And when this clone fails, when it seeks to rule not as a puppet but as a god, it will flee to the deeps, where all the other monsters wait. There is a truth beneath the surface. Helmawr's greatest enemy is not the gangs, not the other houses, not even the Imperium. It is themselves. Their ambition has birthed a second underworld beneath the Hive, not of industry or ash, but of living sins. And those sins are growing restless. The Ratskin tribes of Necromunda have always been mocked by the Hive dwellers. Called savages, relics, mutants, or worse, they are dismissed as a backward remnant of a forgotten culture. But what the gangers, nobles, and enforcers fail to understand is that the Ratskins remember. Not with data slates or cogitators, but with songs, cave paintings, and tales passed through bloodlines older than any Helmawr registry. And in their stories, there are monsters no Helit or tech priest dares name. They speak of spirits in the tunnels, gods that sleep in rust, and beasts that walk between the world of flesh and the world of shadow. These are not myths. These are warnings. The Ratskins believe the Hive itself is alive, not metaphorically, not in some poetic sense, but truly alive. They speak of the Deep Ones, titanic creatures that dwell beneath the Furnace Mountains and the Ash Chasms, not beasts in the traditional sense, but entities made of moving steel, breathing smoke, and wearing the bones of the dead as skin. The deepest shamans say these beings are the forgotten spirits of Necromunda, remnants of the first cities, cursed by mankind's betrayal when the stars went silent. Their names are never spoken aloud, only etched in blood during rites of warding. One such tale speaks of the worm that circles, a being said to encircle the Hive's very foundations, eternally coiled beneath the planet's crust. It sleeps, they say, but dreams in poison. When the ground quakes and the ash storms rise without cause, it is said the worm stirs. In some sectors, entire settlements have vanished into newly formed sinkholes, their people swallowed not by natural collapse, but by the hunger of the earth. The Ratskins light fire braids and sing mourning chants at such sites, not as burial rites, but as apologies. Another whispered entity is the Stone Mother, a spirit of rust and bone that moves beneath the sump, collecting the dead and birthing them anew. Those she takes do not stay dead. Sometimes they return days or weeks later, changed. Their skin is gray, eyes hollow, voices filled with echoes. They walk like puppets and do not bleed. The gangs call them Husk Ghouls, but the Ratskins know them as the Mother's children. They do not fight them. They avoid them. You cannot kill what has already been claimed. Even stranger are the spirits that do not have bodies at all. The tunnel shadows. These are seen only in the corners of vision. Figures of impossible size slithering through the dark, glimpsed through flickering lumen strips or cracked pict feeds. They cast no heat signature, no sound. But wherever they pass, tech malfunctions, Vox systems die, torches sputter out, and men go mad. One Ratskin legend speaks of a spirit called the Thousand Mouths, which feeds not on flesh but on sanity. It whispers in machine code, trickles into dreams, and makes its victims babble in long-dead dialects before gouging out their own eyes. And yet, not all tunnel spirits are malevolent. There are guardian beasts, creatures that protect sacred spaces and old altars. These are rare and never seen directly. Only their signs remain, cleaned bones laid in spirals, ritual glyphs drawn in sump mud, strange melodic sounds from echo chambers. Ratskin shamans offer gifts to these spirits, blood, fungus spores, or ancient heirlooms, in return for passage or guidance. Gangers who violate such places often meet gruesome ends without explanation. And though they mock the superstitions, they never return to those tunnels. There are stories, too, about the times the spirits grow restless when something disturbs their sleep. Whenever Helmawr excavation teams dig too deep, or a rogue psyker attempts to open a warp gate in the deeps, the Ratskins gather at the surface. They light fires of black lichen, sing in tones older than High Gothic, and pray to the deep to remain sealed. These rituals have saved entire tribes, they claim, though no one in the Hive believes them. But belief has little to do with reality in Necromunda. These monsters of prophecy and spirit may not always be visible. They may not bleed when shot or roar when cornered, but they are present. In the chill of unexplained drafts, in the flicker of lumen globes where there should be no movement, in the dreams of children born too close to the sump, the Ratskins know. They've always known. And their fear is not just of teeth and claws, it is of things that cannot die, because they were never truly alive. In the end, the Hive's rulers will never understand the true depth of what lies beneath them. They look for threats in the form of rebellion, infestation, or economic collapse. But the real threat is far older. It breathes through stone. It listens in silence. It remembers being worshipped. And one day, when the last Helmawr vault opens and the deepest tunnel is drilled, it will rise, not to attack, but to reclaim what was once its own. The Ratskins do not speak of that day. They sing of it, and their voices tremble. There is no ocean in Necromunda. No true seas, no sunlit waves, no tide kissed by stars. What it has instead are the Sump Seas, vast, toxic, uncharted expanses of filth and chemical rot that lie at the deepest levels of the Hive, where waste settles in layers thicker than a man's height and centuries of runoff congeal into a hellish sludge. It is a place where light cannot pierce the murk, where oxygen is a rumor, and where evolution has followed no same path. The sump is alive, it seethes, it breathes, and within its black waters crawl things that have never known the sun. These creatures are not surface dwellers who fell and adapted. They were born here, shaped by darkness and poisoned dreams, by gravity and silence. The sump does not produce simple beasts. It births anomalies, abominations. Their biology makes no sense. Some have no organs, yet move with purpose. Some are eyeless, yet stalk prey with surgical precision. Others defy definition entirely, existing as living emulsions, their bodies a shifting mass of semi-sentient goo, responding to sound or thought more than touch. One of the oldest known sump beasts is the gloom whale. Though rarely seen, its legend is etched into the nightmares of Underhive scavers. Said to be the size of a transit train, the gloom whale moves silently beneath the surface, displacing sump matter with such force that entire rafts are pulled under in seconds. Survivors speak of a low hum, like a deep chord struck on some vast instrument, vibrating through metal and marrow alike. It's not clear if the gloom whale is animal, machine, or some ancient fusion of the two. Some claim it sings, and those who hear it are forever changed, either enlightened or broken. Smaller, but no less terrifying, are the word fish. These translucent, eel-like creatures appear in swarms, their bodies pulsating with bioluminescent patterns that change in response to psychic activity. It is believed they are attracted to thought, particularly fear. Explorers equipped with neural dampeners report the fish swimming past them harmlessly, but a single stray emotion can cause the entire swarm to turn predatory. They don't bite. They phase through flesh, shorting nerves, scrambling memories, erasing identity. Victims are found babbling nonsense, unaware of their own names, their minds hollowed clean. Then there are the sludge krakens. Massive, multi-tentacled entities that rest dormant for years, perhaps decades, beneath layers of coagulated waste. When disturbed by excavation explosions or even loud noise, they rise in a frenzy, lashing out at anything nearby. Some appear to possess tool-like appendages, manipulating wreckage or even weaponry. There is a tale of a Goliath-rigged team bringing back half of a kraken's limb, only for it to regenerate overnight and slither away on its own. Now, sump lore dictates a strict silence when traveling. No shouting, no machinery louder than a whisper. Among the most disturbing are the Sump Ghouls. At first glance, they appear to be mannequins, human-shaped, blank-faced, drifting in the water. But they are not made. They are grown. Their skin is soft, their eyes perfectly reflective, their movements slow and deliberate. No one knows if they are sentient. No one wants to. Sometimes they copy movements. Sometimes they sing. One redemptionist expedition vanished near the southern sludge flats, leaving behind only a vox recording of choral hymns, all sung in perfect harmony by inhuman voices. But perhaps the most dreadful of all are the Sump Leviathans. Unlike the other creatures, these are not seen. They are felt. Entire platforms have vanished without a trace, with only the pressure shockwaves and seismic distortions remaining. Gangers tell of hearing enormous breathing, of the water rising despite no rain, of tunnels flooding with blackness so thick it feels alive. There is a theory, only whispered among sump spiders and ash priests, that a true behemoth lies beneath it all. A thing older than the Hive, older than humanity. Perhaps even a failed god. Something too vast to rise, but not too distant to watch. The Sump Seas are not just a physical location, they are a psychological abyss. Prolonged exposure drives men mad, not from fear, but from comprehension. Seeing how life has adapted, how it has forsaken all structure to survive, reveals something horrifying about existence itself, that the universe does not care about logic or beauty. Only continuation. And in the Sump, life continues in the most grotesque, horrifying ways imaginable. There are navigators who brave the Sump in silence, riding chemical skiffs across the waste, mapping the unmappable. They return with stories, wounds, and samples that scream when exposed to air. There are cults who worship Sump creatures, offering up sacrifices in hopes of favor. Some pit fighters are said to be trained in the Sump, raised among its horrors, taught to see without sight, to kill without breath. Yet no matter how many go down, the Sump remains vast, unknowable. Every monster discovered reveals a dozen more. The creatures of the Sump Seas do not rise in invasion. They wait. Slowly, methodically, they spread upward, through water pipes, through chemical ducts, through dreams, because eventually everything in Necromunda falls down, and when it does, the Sump is there, waiting. Deep beneath the gang wars, past the flooded tunnels and bioluminescent sump caves, lies another nightmare. One birthed not from chaos or decay, but from alien design. Where the Imperium looks down and sees refuse, the Genestealer cults see fertile ground. The horror beneath Necromunda's core isn't only made of twisted beasts and environmental madness, it's also made of purpose. And the most terrifying monsters are the ones that know why they were born. The Genestealer cults have existed in Necromunda's Underhive for centuries, perhaps longer. Each time they are purged, they reappear, not by luck, but by design. For the Hive world offers the perfect conditions: endless humans to infect, infinite tunnels to vanish into, and a ruling class too proud to see their own extinction gestating below. But while most know of the hybrids, the clawed gangers, the robed zealots, the faceless patriarchs, few have witnessed the true monsters the cults create in the dark. Beasts bred not only for terror, but for devotion. These are the cult beasts, twisted life forms grown from infected hosts, vat-spawned in gene nests, or summoned into being by psychic will. The most infamous are the grubstriders, multi-legged abominations with the upper torsos of hybridized humans and the lower bodies of insectoid horrors. They move in silent herds through rarely mapped tunnels, cleaning out enemies of the cult with speed and violence. Their claws are razor-edged, but their true weapon is obedience. They do not speak. They do not pause. They die without fear, born for war and nothing else. Then there are the Maulurks. These are aquatic horrors, bred from sump fauna and Genestealer DNA. Their mouths are a vertical maw stretching the length of their body, filled with rotating teeth like a grinder. They can swim through sump sludge at unnatural speed and leap entire corridors to ambush prey. Some versions have acidic saliva, others a paralytic bite. One thing unites them: they never eat their kills. They only feed their patriarch. It's said that when a Maulurk appears, it is only the beginning. The cult follows behind. In sectors where the cult's psychic reach has deepened, the so-called dream spawn are found. These are creatures not entirely of flesh, partially real, partially psychic residue solidified into form. They phase in and out of visibility, reacting to emotion more than movement. Victims report being paralyzed by overwhelming fear, seeing visions of their own faces on the dream spawn's body. It's possible they are constructs of the Magus caste, created to spread madness before the uprising. One redemptionist priest claimed to exorcise a dream spawn using flame and prayer. His entire congregation burned with him. Their shadows permanently scorched into the walls. But not all cult beasts are grown. Some are stolen. The cults are infamous for raiding genetic vaults and tech-sealed vaults, taking failed bioprojects and repurposing them. In the Gutterize Massacre, a Helmawr cleanup team found a gene-spliced Helit juggernaut, originally a failed labor servo designed for toxic environments, now bearing Genestealer claws, chitin armor, and a second mouth. The creature was worshipped as a saint of mutation. It killed 22 enforcers before being brought down. There are also tales, mostly whispers, of the broodlords themselves creating bespoke monsters. These are not mass-bred, they are singular, sacred. One such creature, referred to in gang legends as the God-limbed, was said to have 12 arms, each ending in a different weapon or claw. It did not walk, it floated, and its presence made men drop to their knees in worship or madness. A single picked capture of its silhouette, found on a dead scavenger's slate, shows a mass of limbs surrounding a glowing core, with hundreds of eyes watching from every angle. The capture was corrupted seconds after retrieval. Cult beasts are never alone. Wherever they go, the cult follows. They're not just used for battle, they're symbols of the divine. To the faithful, these monsters are proof that their God is real, that their blood is chosen, that the coming of the Star Children is near. Rituals are held to birth them. Victims are sacrificed. Songs are sung in languages no longer human. And once released, these creatures do not stop until the hive chokes on its own screams. Worse still, some say the beasts are only scouts. The true horrors lie dormant beneath the nests, embryonic forms waiting for the hive mind's signal. Bioships that have not yet arrived. Beasts that remember the stars. And when they wake, not even the core of Necromunda will be safe. For now, the cult keeps them hidden. The Helmawrs underestimate them. The enforcers burn what they see. But in the endless dark, deep beneath the ruins of old hives, the cult grows bolder. And its beasts are growing stronger. Not bred for survival, bred for extinction. And extinction wears many claws. There are places beneath Necromunda where even light dies of fear. Forgotten vaults, sealed cathedrals, and crumbling tunnels carved during the hive's first construction now lie abandoned, not just by man, but by reality itself. In these spaces, the warp has bled through, not with fire or horns, but with silence. And in that silence, things have entered. Not daemons in the classic sense, not visible to all, but present, hungry, aware. These are the Neverborn, entities of pure warp essence that do not wait for summoning or permission. They are already here, beneath the spire, beneath everything. One of the most infamous sightings occurred in the lower sanctum of Hive Omega, a spire long since swallowed by geological collapse. Survey drones recovered fragments of picked feeds showing shifting geometries, walls bending in impossible directions, shadows cast where there was no light source. The audio was worse. Layered voices speaking backwards, layered on top of laughter, mechanical screams, and the sound of breathing that didn't match the number of bodies present. The final image was of a symbol etched into rust, not drawn but grown, like lichen. The drones never returned, and every scavenger who went in after either vanished or returned blind. The Neverborn are not like the daemons fought by inquisitors on war-torn worlds. They don't declare themselves. They seep, they linger, they whisper into circuits and mutate data itself. One gang, the Void Bleeders, stumbled upon a sealed vault lined with obsidian mirrors. Inside, they found themselves reflected not as they were, but as corpses, mutilated, decayed, whispering back at them. They left the vault, or thought they did, only to find themselves still inside, trapped in a loop. It took them 9 days to claw their way out. Only one survived. His reflection, according to his own terrified account, still tries to follow him in glass. In other places, entire sections of the hive have fallen under the sway of unexplainable phenomena. Vox units scream without power. Lumen strips flicker in perfect Morse patterns, spelling the names of the dead. One sector, once a Redemptionist chapel, became a place of utter silence. No sound could be made inside, even gunfire. Gangers exploring it reported hallucinations of impossible beasts stitched together from parts of people they knew. When they left, they aged years in seconds. One's beard grew in real time as he screamed. The creatures, if they can be called that, manifest in forms inconsistent with flesh. Some are pure shadow, others glitching light. Some possess machines, turning servo skulls into predators. Others wear bodies like clothing, animating the dead with mechanical grace. The worst are those that whisper into minds. One Escher gang leader, strong of will and cold of heart, went down into the warp-infected tunnels and came back a prophet. She now speaks only in tongues, draws circles with no center, and her followers claim she bleeds music. There are scholars who suggest that these Neverborn are not intruders, but original inhabitants. That before the hives were built, before the world was scoured by industry and war, these things lived in the psychic echoes of the planet. Perhaps they are memories made sentient, perhaps regrets of the planet itself, given thought by the warp. Or maybe they are just daemons too broken to leave. The ecclesiarchy will not speak of them. The Adeptus Mechanicus avoid the areas where they are known to manifest, quietly writing off entire sectors as structurally unstable. Helmawr enforcers burn anyone who records data on their presence. But the Underhive talks, the whispers spread. And more importantly, the disappearances continue. It is said there is one specific Neverborn, older than the rest, known only as the Spiral Judge. It does not kill. It follows those who enter its domain and watches, sometimes for hours, sometimes for days. It has no face, only a mass of eyes stitched into a circular halo. People who are followed by the Spiral Judge die days later, not by blade or bullet, but by decisions. They walk into crossfire, they trust the wrong people, they go insane and leap into fans, as if fate itself is edited by the thing. And the deepest horror? These Neverborn may not be limited to the Underhive. There are rumors, only ever whispered, that certain nobles have begun to suffer nightmares of their own spire rotting, that mirrors crack without reason, that heirs go missing and return wrong. Perhaps the warp has finally seeped into the heights. Perhaps it was always there. These are not monsters that you can kill. These are not enemies that bleed. These are echoes of lies, born of madness, feeding on despair. They are the Hive's reflection. They are its sins made spectral. They are the soul of Necromunda, and it is far darker than anyone feared. There is a theory, whispered among the more unhinged members of House Stalks, that the hives of Necromunda are not entirely built, that some parts were grown, not in the biological sense of muscle and sinew, but in a strange, technological architectural hybrid of steel, code, and memory. They call it living hive architecture. And to most, it sounds like madness. But when you walk the deep sectors, the ones that echo when they shouldn't, the ones that rearrange themselves when you're not looking, it begins to feel very real. Some tunnels seem to curve when previously straight. Some doors lead to places that did not exist hours earlier. Entire stairwells rise or collapse overnight, with no seismic cause, no mechanical explanation. Machine spirits don't answer, servitors malfunction, auspex readings fail, and those who live in these places for too long begin to change. Not always physically, but in ways far worse. There are confirmed reports of gangers who marked routes through the hive using rune tags and beacons, only to find the markers eaten by the walls, not removed. One Orlok scout watched as a ferrocrete corridor slowly closed in behind him, the floor curling upward like a tongue, the ceiling drooping as if breathing. He barely escaped. His picked recording shows nothing but static and a low humming, but his face, frozen in primal terror, tells the real story. These living sections appear more often near ancient infrastructure, data core pylons, power conduits from the dark age of technology, or forgotten STC engines. Some believe these machines, left buried and partially operational, began to influence their surroundings, that they've become something like a nervous system, interpreting signals, adapting to threats, growing structures as needed. But the horror lies in the suggestion that the machine no longer serves mankind, that it grows for its own reasons. One such place is the heart coil, a labyrinth of interwoven tubes and halls where metal seems soft, almost pliant. The air is thick with static. No servitor functions here. No mechadendrite will extend. Explorers speak of rhythmic pulsing from the walls, timed with their own heartbeats. And if you stand still too long, the floor begins to shift, not aggressively, but intimately, as though it's learning you, mapping you, preparing something. In the Lament Vox Zone, another such anomaly exists. Audio recorders pick up constant breathing even when the sector is uninhabited. The breathing changes depending on who is present. Loud when calm, quiet when afraid. Once, a Dalok data thief dared speak to it. He whispered into the Vox, "Are you listening?" The breathing stopped, then it repeated his words perfectly. He never returned to the surface. His teammates found his data slate embedded in the wall, not resting against it, but fused into it like a bone and flesh. Even more disturbing are the rumors of Hive-born individuals with strange immunities, people who pass through living sectors untouched, unfeared, even followed. These individuals often hear whispers in ventilation shafts, feel the walls shift to protect them from danger, or find doors opening where none existed. The Dalok are suspected of grooming such individuals, seeing them as proof that the Hive can be communicated with. Some say these rare souls are being modified, or perhaps were born as part of the Hive's own plan. It raises an unsettling question. What if the Hive itself is sentient? Not a conscious mind in the human sense, but something deeper, a distributed awareness formed over millennia by machine spirits, residual human emotions, and arcane technologies layered beyond understanding. What if the Hive has memory? What if it remembers the wars, the deaths, the rituals, the betrayals? And what if it is learning? The Redemptionists declare such areas heretical and burn them. The Adeptus Mechanicus pretends they don't exist. The Helmawr seal them and erase the data, but they keep growing, quietly, patiently, with purpose. Perhaps the most terrifying account comes from an Ashrunner named Jarlix, who once fell through a false floor and landed in what he described as a metal womb. It was spherical, soft-edged, with lights that dimmed as he panicked and glowed brighter when he sang a childhood hymn. He stayed there 3 days, untouched, unhungry. When he finally emerged, his veins glowed for a week, and his voice had changed. Now he speaks in binary when dreaming. If the Hive is alive, then what does it want? Is it evolving toward something? Is it feeding on us, protecting us, replicating us? Or is it simply growing, with no more awareness than mold or fungus, yet just as unstoppable? This is the dark hope of the mad and the horror of the sane, that we do not merely live in Necromunda, we live within it, and it, in turn, is beginning to live within us. There are places in the deep where the stone is soft and the air tastes wrong, where tunnels twist in patterns that no human could dig, and the walls shimmer with an oily residue that burns when touched. These are the burrows of the Ambuls, and perhaps others like them. The great tunneling beasts, long known to explorers and Deathworld veterans, have somehow found their way into Necromunda's deepest strata. But what's truly horrifying is that they may not be alone. That other Xenos creatures, forgotten or unknown, have made Necromunda's bowels their own. The Ambul, originally from the hot, dry world of Luther McIntyre Mine, should not be here. They need heat, deep stone, mineral-rich soil. And yet, in the artificial crust of the Hive world, they thrive. They dig great spirals through the underhive, their claws reinforced by generations of exposure to industrial runoff and unclassified alloys. They leave behind scent trails of musk and pheromones that cause nausea in humans and frenzy in sump rats. They do not hunt like predators. They wait like traps, burying themselves in waste sand and collapsing corridors behind their prey. To be hunted by an Ambul is to be stalked by the ground itself. More disturbing are the signs that Ambuls are breeding. Sightings of juveniles, smaller, leaner, faster, have become more frequent in the last few decades. Some have been captured and sold in pit fights, but most disappear again into the walls. It is believed they have established permanent nests, perhaps even subterranean hives of their own. Some speculate that the artificial heat and energy bleed from Necromunda's buried generators has created a perfect breeding ground. If true, then the Ambuls may no longer be invaders. They are residents now. But Ambuls are only the beginning. There are tales, unverified but persistent, of other Xenos creatures nesting deep in the core. One such tale involves the Chimerid, a being said to shift form depending on what it consumes. First documented by rogue traders in distant systems, the Chimerid is a devourer of DNA. It doesn't just eat, it becomes. Scavengers whisper of encounters with gangmates who vanished in the tunnels, only to return with mirrored eyes, perfect mimicry, but no soul. The mimic would follow its old comrades, learn their patterns, then kill them in their sleep. Only flame revealed the truth. Chimerids do not burn the way flesh does. Another recurring nightmare is the tunnel banshee. Described as a serpentine creature with a translucent body and a wailing shriek that causes hemorrhaging, this creature is believed to have originated from deep space Xenos biomes, possibly remnants of the ancient Rud, or something worse. It feeds on sound, they say. The quieter the tunnel, the closer it gets. No picked footage survives of its attack, only black boxes soaked in blood and ruptured vox arrays. It never leaves a full corpse behind, only bones polished and carved with runes. And then there are the buried. Less creatures than phenomena. Theories abound that certain Xenos races, hunted to extinction by the Imperium, sought refuge in the deepest planets they could find, and went into hibernation. One of these races, name lost to time, is believed to sleep beneath Necromunda still. Not dead, not even dormant. Just waiting. Deep resonant scans in the black glass zone picked up pulses. Not mechanical, not seismic, but rhythmic, like breathing. Every 6 hours, and always moving deeper. In response, some Xenos cults have sprung up among the ash scum and hive trash, half-crazed humans worshipping these creatures as gods, offering sacrifices, learning alien dialects etched into the walls. The cult of the Hollow Fang claims that the Xenos below will cleanse Necromunda of humanity's sins, returning the world to a primal balance. They're dismissed as heretics, but they are growing in number. And in a world where mutation is common, it's getting harder to tell where the human ends and the alien begins. Even more chilling are the rumors that these Xenos presences are not merely hiding, that they are studying, learning. A few recovered corpses show signs of surgical removal of organs, precise, careful, clean. Others have had strange crystalline implants placed in their skulls. One corpse, found near Hive Requiem, had eyes that did not belong to any known species. They recorded light from beyond the visible spectrum. What it saw in those final moments remains a mystery. The Mechanicus, of course, deny all of this. Their explorator teams occasionally descend into these zones, but they never return with answers. Sometimes they do not return at all. Helmawr's enforcers pretend not to notice. After all, if the Xenos keep to the deep, why stir them? But the deeper truth is this: the creatures from beyond are not just under our feet. They are within our ecosystem, feeding, learning, breeding. Necromunda was once a world of industry. Now it may be becoming a Xenos cradle, a hybrid world, layered with nightmares both human and alien. And in the dark, where heat seeps and silence reigns, something with too many eyes watches us back. They say that fear is the Emperor's weapon, but in the redemptionist cults of Necromunda, fear is not a tool. It is a gospel, a sacrament, a fire lit in the soul to burn away weakness and impurity. In the lower hives, where reason has no purchase and survival becomes faith, the monsters that haunt these zealots are not always real in the conventional sense. Some are born of madness, others of sin, and some, horrifyingly, may be shaped into being by belief itself. These are the Redemptionist Nightmares. These are the Hell Labor myths. Every Redemptionist enclave has its own stories, passed down by flame-lit preachers and bloodied pulpits. Tales of creatures forged in the fires of heresy, abominations that punish the wicked and test the faithful. The Scourging Saint is one such myth. A skeletal figure wrapped in barbed chains, its eyes molten, its breath ash. Said to appear when a community grows soft or a preacher turns lax, the saint does not speak. It judges. Those found wanting are incinerated by touch, reduced to screaming cinders. Some redemptionists claim to have seen its shadow before mass purges. Others believe they are chosen to become it after death, if they remain righteous and wrathful enough. Then there's the Wheel of Wounds, not a creature, but a presence, always described as a grinding sound that never stops, growing louder the more one confesses. Redemptionist penitents have been known to carve spinning circles into their flesh, mimicking the wheel, believing that only through pain can they escape its judgment. But sometimes the sound follows them, into their dreams, into the pipes, into their blood. One tale speaks of a preacher who heard the wheel for 6 days and nights. On the 7th, his entire body collapsed inward, bones shattering in spirals, organs twisted into rings. His followers deemed it a holy miracle. These nightmares are not limited to myth. They influence behavior, shape dogma. Entire redemptionist factions have been built around them. The chain-shriven worship the flayed choir, a supposed group of invisible singers whose music is made from the screams of the unworthy. The choir, they say, only sings when blood is spilled correctly, with intent, with fire, with purity. Gangers who've encountered the chain shriven describe mass ritual killings, where victims are dismembered with rhythmic precision. And those who survive speak of hearing distant music in the vents afterward. There is evidence that these myths may have origins in psychic feedback loops, areas where so much death, fear, and religious fervor have layered upon each other that the very air becomes volatile. Sanctioned psychers sent into such zones often suffer seizures or prophetic trances. Some claim to see the monsters of redemptionist belief taking shape, literal forms of fire and bone emerging from blood-stained altars. Whether these are daemons, warp echoes, or hallucinations remains unclear. What is clear is that they kill. One particular entity, known only as the Ash God, has become more prominent in recent cycles. Depicted as a massive figure of soot and fire, faceless but with arms like furnace vents, the Ash God is said to be the final form of all flame worship. Redemptionist circles believe its emergence signals the end of Necromunda as a world of industry and the beginning of its purification. Some even burn themselves alive in an attempt to merge with its essence. Whether the Ash God is a chaos construct, a hive-wide meme curse, or something worse is unknown. But in areas where the cult gains strength, spontaneous combustion incidents rise. The psychological aspect cannot be ignored. Many of these monsters may be mass delusions, spiritual weapons deployed by the cult to enforce obedience and martyrdom. But there's a deeper fear among the more scholarly minds of the Underhive. That belief, when concentrated enough in the warp-saturated environment of Necromunda, creates. The warp does not care for truth. It feeds on emotion, on obsession, on narrative. And the Redemptionists are nothing if not obsessed. It is entirely possible that some of these creatures began as fictions, metaphors for sin and fire, only to become real in the warp's eye. Made flesh by faith. Powered by prayer and pain. That is the true horror of the Redemptionist mythos. Not that their monsters might exist, but that they must because belief demands it. And in a world built on suffering, lit by fire, ruled by death, the line between metaphor and monster grows thinner by the day. So when you hear a choir where none should sing, or see a figure made of flame watching from a tunnel's end, pray it is only a hallucination. Because if it is real, you're already too late. There is a tale, older than even House Helmawr's claim to rule, whispered among the deepest dwelling scavers and the blind shamans of the Sump, of a monster no one hunts, not because they fear it, but because they know it cannot be found. It finds you. It watches from a depth beyond maps, behind all logic, beneath all tunnels. It has no name in the official record, no bounty, no sightings, only patterns, only vanishing, only absence that grows into a story too terrible to say aloud. Some call it the silence that stalks, others refer to it as the first depth, as if it were not a creature at all, but a sentient place. But in the fractured accounts of the few who escaped its influence, a single idea always returns, that it is not an animal or even a daemon, but something older than purpose, deeper than decay. A force of extinction wearing the suggestion of a shape. The first clue always seems innocuous. A patrol fails to check in. A gang disappears without a fight. A crawler rig, equipped with full sensor suites, simply drops off all Vox networks. The site is investigated. The structure is intact, equipment untouched, but no people remain. No blood. No drag marks, only strange signs. Candles melted without flame. Water moving against gravity, shadows cast by nothing. One such incident, the 3 blind Habs, involved a Hab sector that went dark for 3 nights. On the 4th, lights returned, patrol entered, everyone was gone. All windows were broken inward, all doors still locked. Messages had been carved into the walls from the inside, single words repeated, "Don't dig." The workers' logs recovered from their databanks showed no signs of distress, only recordings of humming, then static, then silence. Helmawr sealed the area and denied access, but the name spread. And then, worse, it disappeared again from all official files. Not censored, deleted, as if the system refused to acknowledge it. It is believed this entity, or force, does not attack out of hunger or territory. It responds to proximity. Some say it protects something ancient, perhaps even the true core of Necromunda, where the hive no longer ends in structure but begins in unknowable depth. Others think it is the final evolution of all corruption. A creature so steeped in the sump, the warp, and decay that it has become invisible to reality. Some whisper it is reality in that place. One scavenger returned from a forbidden descent near the Black Moss Spire. Half dead, mind shattered, eyes surgically removed, not torn, not gouged, surgically removed. He repeated one phrase, "It doesn't breathe, it doesn't blink, it waits until you forget it's real. Then it erases you." He died soon after, his autopsy showing anomalous tissue growth in his spinal cord, resembling Vox antennae. He had become a receiver. For what? No one dares guess. Among the Delac, rumors run deeper. Some of their information brokers believe the monster is not a creature but a failed god machine, a long-lost AI or warp-infested cogitator core, sealed during the dark age of technology. It awakens only when disturbed, then unravels those who find it with weaponized memory corruption and temporal distortion. One Delac handler supposedly received a direct contact signal from it, a perfectly calm human voice asking a single question. "Do you remember when you were alone?" The handler killed herself 2 hours later. The most terrifying aspect is that no one has seen it. Not truly, because anyone who does either dies or is removed. That's the word those in the know use. Not killed, not devoured, removed, as if from a script or a memory or a shared reality. Entire gang histories have blank sections. Enforcer files glitch when referencing certain zones. Even the tech priests grow nervous and pious when asked. They cross themselves and mutter litanies about sacred rot and holy subtraction. A legend persists that Helmawr himself has ordered multiple deep core excavations abandoned, not because of structural instability, but because this thing moved. Not toward the excavation, not away, just shifted. That was enough. Whole teams disappeared, machinery melted, thought itself distorted. One high-ranking enforcer assigned to monitor the operation woke up speaking a language no linguist could translate. His blood, under magnification, contained what looked like circuit diagrams. He dissolved after 72 hours. Not died. Dissolved. No one hunts it. No one seeks it. Because to seek it is to make it aware, and to be seen by it is to be forgotten by everything else. Some say the Emperor himself turns his gaze away from that place, that even faith has no reach that deep. But the monster is real. It is there, and it is close. The only warning anyone ever gets is silence, not the silence of emptiness. The silence of something listening, patiently, just beyond the last word you spoke. And when that silence begins to follow you, no weapon, no gang, no god will remember you were ever alive. Beneath the last strata, deeper than Sump Seas, beyond collapsed manufactorums and entombed data vaults, lies the place no map names. The place where gravity curls, where heat reverses, where time folds into rusted spirals and logic rots in silence. The core of Necromunda is not a center. It is an origin. And at its heart, if the rumors are true, if the maddened whispers of the deep scavers and forbidden Mechanicus files hold even a grain of truth, is a secret so monstrous, so absolute, that even the Helmawr line pretends not to know it. Because the monsters beneath the Hive, the corpse worms, the gene spawn, the sump leviathans and daemons, may all be symptoms. But the disease, the original wound, is buried in that final darkness. Some believe it is an ancient Xenos entity, something entombed during the age of strife, never killed, only buried. A star god fragment or a psychic singularity given form. Others say it is a machine, not mechanical but ideational. A logic engine that reached such density of thought that it collapsed into itself and became sentient, insane, and hungry. Whatever it is, the deep core anomalies are undeniable. There are pressure shifts with no tectonic cause. Echoes that repeat words never spoken. Circuitry that grows without input. Stone that dreams. Flesh that remembers things no mind should know. And always, beneath it all, a pulsing rhythm. Not mechanical, not biological. Something else. Something older. The Adeptus Mechanicus once attempted a true deep core descent. Operation Sable Halo, 500 Tech Guard, 8 Magi, and a high-ordained Logi Lexico named Varn Luth. They descended with full blessings, mechadendrites singing, scanners hot, only one signal returned. A burst of binary nonsense followed by a single image, an eye made of copper and flame suspended in a geometric field of recursive triangles. Every data slate that tried to decode the signal melted. Luth's name was expunged from the Martian registry. Sable Halo was declared a heresy, and the tunnels were sealed. But the thing in the core was not sealed. It moved. How do we know this? Because sometimes in the deeper hives, people vanish and return changed. Not possessed, not mutated, but wrong. They speak perfect High Gothic despite being born ash scum. They complete mechanical equations known only to the fabricator general. They kill without emotion, not for cause, but for calibration. And worst of all, they build devices no one can understand. Machines that breathe, walls that listen, words that implant themselves in your dreams. The Dalak have tried to communicate with it. They believe it to be a data deity, the first source of all knowledge and surveillance. They call it the submind, and claim it has always watched, even before there were walls to hide behind. One Dalak info savant was found dead with no wounds, no cause, only his brain, somehow perfectly preserved, filled with schematic diagrams of a machine no one could read. The diagrams were made of light, shifting with breath, and disappeared when recorded. The Redemptionists, in their mad firelust, call the core being the Furnace-born, a god of final judgment, forging monsters as a warning to the sinful. They believe one day it will rise, not in fire, but in the cessation of all flame. A cold god, a god of silence. Some in House Escher believe it is a failed bioexperiment, a Helmawr ambition so vast and arrogant that it gave birth to something beyond control. A thinking world, a sentient Necromunda. That would explain the living architecture. The spontaneous hive growth, the sectors that appear and disappear as if dreaming. What no one dares say aloud is that it may be all of these things, that the core secret is not singular but composite, a nexus of all failure, all sin, all discarded technology, all broken ambition. That the monsters we've spoken of, the Sump horrors, the chaos spawn, the leech spirits and genetic outcasts, are simply the children of this thing. That it is not content to sleep, it breeds. Through idea, through machine, through mutation, through faith. And every generation it creeps closer to the surface. In one of the deepest maintenance sectors, a picked feed once caught something for exactly 3 seconds. Not a face, not a shape, just presence. All servitors died instantly. The image when played back causes nosebleeds. The vox accompanying it is a whisper that says, in flawless human speech, "I am almost here." That was 10 years ago. Now, the deep hives are shifting more often. Power surges roll upward like tremors. Dreams come to surface dwellers filled with symbols they've never seen. The gangs grow restless, the cults bold, and Helmawr's silence becomes more deafening by the day. Because the final truth is this: Necromunda was never just a hive world. It was a vault, a prison, a shell, and something inside is waking. If this journey through Necromunda's most terrifying depths has fascinated you, if you felt the pull of the unknown and the horror of what lies beneath, make sure to subscribe, because there are still so many monsters in the dark. And one day, they'll reach us.